This wasn't a routine hearing. This was a full-scale political ambush unfolding in real time. A senior civil service project put on trial, and one man refusing to accept a single layer of excuses. Rupert Lowe didn't come to negotiate. He came to expose. He tore straight into the system, calling it inefficient, unaccountable, and already doomed by design. And when officials tried to defend it with clusters and processes, he hit them with one question they couldn't escape. No ownership, no consequences, no accountability, and what happened next left the entire room frozen.
To private sector efficiencies. That sounds great, it's a great strapline. But again, I read the inefficiencies here. Applicant tracking system, ATS, shelved. Shared services portfolio, incomplete. Project ownership, vague. I want to talk about that in a minute. Risk management, patchy. Managing interdependencies, concerning. Okay, I'd say impossible. That's my view on that. So another question for you is, how can you deliver efficiency across shared government systems when the entire approach to the project itself is inefficient? I don't understand. I mean, I run lots of private sector businesses. I don't see, and you can give me the verbal baby food, Jerome, but at the end of the day, I want to drill down and know, I want to understand, this has been going on a hell of a long time. A lot of taxpayers' money has been spent on this. Our job is to protect the taxpayer, not anything else. The taxpayer wants value for money. So I'd like an answer.
What do you think about this debate? Drop your opinion in the comments below and join the discussion on what really happened here.
To that. And I haven't had one yet.
So two things. So firstly, if I can just come back on your previous point about either the strategy is doomed to fail, we don't have the right people in place. I think the strategy is not doomed to fail, and I think we do have absolutely the right people in place. And I might let Nathan and Diane speak, but these are people with deep expertise precisely in delivering this sort of transformation. So I think we do have right across the clusters. And remember, this is a...
Clusters don't always agree with what you're telling us here. The clusters, if you read the report, the clusters actually contradict what's been... So they contradicted what was said by the NAO uncovered that, as they usually do in their excellent reports. So that's not entirely consistent. So, again, if you can't even build and maintain a routine dashboard, which is in this report, as you probably know, I fail to see how you can deliver resounding success and value for money on this project. If you can't even deliver the dashboard, how can you tell?
Shall I say points of progress that we've made, actually? And yes,
I don't think the NAO would agree with you.
Well, from that is a development since the last report. It is something that and again, the quality of the returns is now much better. But
and more importantly, you haven't got any one person who's in charge of this project. Nobody gets fired for not delivering. There's nobody. I can't see who's actually. And if you have a project in a private sector company, somebody's given the job, and if they don't deliver to timelines, they get fired. Historically, you haven't delivered to timelines. We're reviewing progress, and I can't see any progress. So I think you've seriously, and you mentioned AI, Jerome. I think you've got to sit down with a cold towel on your heads and decide, are you going to be overtaken by the digital revolution, and are you going to eventually do what the NAO did?
We will reflect very carefully on the questions and the answers.
And what we just witnessed here was not a normal policy exchange. It was a direct challenge to the entire structure of how this project is being run. Because Rupert Lowe doesn't ease into his questioning. He goes straight for the core problem. He starts by questioning whether the entire system is already broken at its foundation. Either the people in charge are not capable of delivering it, or the project itself is fundamentally doomed. That's the framing he sets from the very beginning, and then he does something that completely shifts the tone of the room. He brings in the details, shared services, tracking systems, risk management, project ownership. All of the internal weaknesses buried inside the report are dragged into the open. And suddenly, this is no longer abstract policy talk. It becomes a question of failure, waste, and accountability. The response, however, tries to push back. We hear the standard defense that the strategy is not doomed, that the right people are in place, that progress is being made across different clusters. But Lowe doesn't accept the framing, because for him, the structure itself is the problem, and this is where the exchange becomes more intense. He points out something that cuts through all the technical language. There is no single person responsible, no one individual who can be held accountable if the project fails. Instead, responsibility is split across clusters, systems, and roles that overlap just enough to avoid direct blame. And that's the moment he pushes the argument even further. Because in his view, this isn't just inefficiency, it is a system designed without consequences. A system where failure does not lead to removal. A system where nobody is actually fired, regardless of performance. And that's the private sector comparison he keeps returning to. In his words, if this were a business, someone would already have been removed. But here, he sees no equivalent mechanism for accountability, no clear trigger for consequences, just continuous reviews, reports, and reassurances. Then comes the escalation. He questions whether the entire project is even fit for the digital era, whether it is already being overtaken by technological change before it has even delivered anything meaningful. And he frames it as a warning, not just about inefficiency, but about wasted taxpayer money on a system he believes may never fully work. At this point, the response shifts again into structural explanation. The cluster system is defended as a deliberate design choice, with multiple accountable officers across different areas of delivery. But Lowe immediately brings it back to the same central issue: too many layers, too many responsible parties, and ultimately, no single point of failure, which, in his view, means no real accountability at all. And as the exchange reaches its end, his position becomes completely clear. He believes the entire structure needs to be rethought from the ground up. One person, one responsibility line, one point of accountability. And if that person fails, consequences must follow, because without that, he argues, the cycle will repeat. More reports, more reviews, more promises, but no real delivery. And that is where the hearing ends, not with agreement, but with a warning hanging in the air that the system itself may already be on a path toward failure.